visit this visit menti.com and use the code 48343 and answer the question. So what would you change if you ran the world? So the world is in your hands right now. What are you going to do? Kindly answer us. Remember, the responses are anonymous. Let us know. I can see one is coming. Corruption, abolish, okay. Research funding to students, wow, okay, interesting. So give us your thoughts, your insights. If you had the chance to run the world, or if you had a chance to change what is going on in the world, what would you change? Equality, wow, I can see some global health leaders here. Make hate and discrimination impossible, absolutely. Better policies, true, concerning education, health, and equity. Nice. Please let's get the response coming in before we start the webinar, and as everyone joins or gets an opportunity to join in. So kindly give your thoughts. Remember, your responses are anonymous, so feel free to tell us. What would you change if you ran the world? Shut down all zoos. Wow, okay. Maybe would anyone like to unmute and maybe tell us their reason or what they would also like to change, and then we can unmute you. You can raise your hand. Just let us know. Okay, I'll just give Malik. Maybe the host can unmute Malik and maybe he could give us. Yes, Malik, I believe now you can unmute and tell us your thoughts.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you for having me here. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Malik, and I'm a 6th-year medical student from Nigeria. Yeah. Okay, so if I have the chance to change it around the world, wow, I would like to make everybody and the world a safer place for everyone to be. Okay, I would like to make the world a safer place, stop discrimination, ethnicity. I believe that the world can be better if we come together. And I will also try to stop the kind of biasment, within among each countries, tribes, ethnicity, because I believe that the world can be good with that. Then I will also encourage let me say inter-country marriage. Okay, maybe mixing up marriage from African, with let's say an Asian lady or a Korean lady or something like that. So because I believe in interbreeding, because so that's what I will do, because as a person. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malik, for giving us your thoughts and your insights.
Yes,
hopefully, we hope to see you in one of the leadership positions in Nigeria soon.
Yes,
thank you very much. Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Let's see. There's so many other responses. Hunger, create more opportunities for young people or youth. Wow. Okay. Let's bring in those responses as everyone gets a chance to join in. Remember, I've seen some are please kindly put your response on menti.com, not on the chat. Just visit, it's simple, visit the website www.menti.com and use the code 48343 and tell us what would you change if you ran the world? I would spike up the vaccine coverage rate. Wow, okay, that's good. Create opportunities for poor people to study whatever they want. Wow. Create equal opportunities to everyone despite their age, sex, gender, ethnicity, culture, and background. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys for your responses. I can see everyone is really interested in bringing the world together and, ending all the inequalities that we face when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to opportunities, etc., education. Thank you everyone for your amazing responses. Anyone who would like to give us any insight? Maybe we can take one more person before we start the session. You can raise your hand and we can unmute you. And tell us what you would do. I mean, if you had the world in your hands, what would you do? How would you change it? How would you run it? Equity in health and education. Wow, I'm seeing everyone is really interested in ensuring that there's equity in education and health, and especially now when we're seeing those disparities with only the privileged societies or schools being able to conduct online classes, while the less privileged are left without any education. So yes, thank you. I would try to stop violence faced by women and children. Good, okay. These are really, thank you guys, everyone, for your amazing responses and, giving us an insight into what you would do if you change the world. It's a shame not everyone has an opportunity to, to be in those leadership positions or everything, but trust me, there's a lot that you can do. And one of it is through research, and you will learn more today in this session. And you can actually change the world through just by sitting at home. So, wow, you don't need a position to define you, or you don't need that particular opportunity for you to express what you feel and what you need, and how you want the world, how you envision the world to be for your kids, for your grandkids, etc. So thank you guys very much. For your responses, I'd now like to hand over to my colleague, Nikita. Nikita?
Thank you very much, Yasir, for that refreshing icebreaker. So we'll go straight to it's customary for us to introduce the session with a bit of background about the organizations that have been hosting you and putting on this webinar. So I am going to share my screen a bit, give you one final presentation where we appreciate the organizers. Okay. So we have 5 student organizations that have come together to further the agenda of research among undergraduate students in the health sciences. We have FAMSA, that's the Federation of Medical Students Associations. They have several standing committees, one of which is a standing committee on medical education and research. Tony Kiprono has been part of the organizing committee. He is the chair of SCOMER. We also have Laura Nyiha. Laura is also a member of the standing committee on medical education and research. We have been very happy partnering with FAMSA. Please subscribe to the mailing lists for further information on other activities they run. We have MSAKE, which is the Medical Students Association of Kenya. They also have several standing committees. That's the Standing Committee on Research Exchange. We've been working with Chana. He has also been a co-moderator at several webinars. We have Janet Ndongo, an aspiring medical researcher, very nice to work with. We have the Ubongo Campaign, which is based at the University of Nairobi's Medical School. From there, we have Koki Mutungi, who's the chair. She's a very bright medical student. She also has a Bachelor of Science in Medical Physiology. We have RePub. The representative was Nicholas Kioko. He's also been fantastic working with. Nicholas also happens to be the chair of the Medical Students Association of Kenya. We have the Students One Health Club. From the Students One Health Club, or SOHIC, we had Samantha Mukonja, also a very well-read medic in her second to final year. She has a Bachelor of Science in Human Anatomy, which is no mean feat. She's very proactive, and it has been wonderful working in the same team. Finally, we have ReMED, which stands for Research in Medicine. I'm a representative of ReMED, and I work with Liz Melvin. My name is Nikita Muthuri. I'm the chair, and Liz is one of the two organizing secretaries we have at ReMED. So we had this vision to make, to demystify research amongst our colleagues in medical school. And we thought, because we're all at home during this COVID period, webinars are a good way to go, and we'll have a broader reach if we invite people from all over Africa. I'm happy to see that you guys have been consistently attending, and I hope it's been really beneficial to you. So today we have our final webinar in the 5-part series. We're going to be discussing publishing your research paper. We have a pre-webinar survey form, which I hope you filled, and we have a post-webinar survey form for which you have to fill before getting a certificate of attendance and participation. So we're going to have 3 speakers today. We'll start with Dr. Beda Olabu, who's an amazing doctor. He's a lecturer at the Department of Human Anatomy at the University of Nairobi. He's currently doing his residency in diagnostic radiology, also at the University of Nairobi. He is one of the more accomplished medics with a Bachelor of Science in Human Anatomy. He's done his MCHB at the University of Nairobi. He's done his MSc in Anatomy at the same place. And he has over 70 publications in peer-reviewed journals. He's an amazing research mentor, and we are happy to have him as a patron of ReMED. So without further ado, I will welcome Dr. Beda to the, well, we don't have a podium, but welcome Dr. Beda. Oh, Dr. Beda, you're muted.
All right, it's now fine.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Nikita, for the invitation, and also for the warm welcome notes. So I can go ahead with the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Nikita, you can see my screen?
Yes, yes, your screen is visible.
All right, thank you. So good afternoon, good evening, or good morning for some of you. My name is Beda Olabu, as you've heard from Nikita. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Human Anatomy, University of Nairobi. By training, I'm a human anatomist and also involved in research, as you've seen. And as she has told you, I am also doing my residency. I'm in 4th year, doing diagnostic radiology, hoping to finish soon. So today I'm going to talk to you with regard to the process of publishing a journal article. I will talk to you on three large areas. The first one will be on types of journal articles. The second one will be the process of publishing a journal article. And the third one is my personal experience in publishing. So we'll start with types of journal articles, or whatever I'm calling types of submissions. I'm calling them submissions because I have in mind that we are talking to someone who may not have yet started publishing. So these are the things you'll be submitting that I've called the submissions, but generally they're articles. So what are the types of journal articles that are there? There are quite a number, but you are likely to come across these 5 often. And maybe there are a number because of different naming systems. Otherwise, if you consolidate them, they may actually just fall into 5 of these. So there's what we call original research article. There's what we call clinical trial, which is very close to the first one. There's what we call letter to the editor, or brief communication. Then we have what we call review article. And lastly, we have a case report, or you can call it a case study, depending on the context. So I'll take you through these 5. The first one is original research article. So these ones usually have detailed report of original research. And basically, we classify them as primary literature because they contain primary data. The data that you are obtaining here is primary in the sense that such a data has not been obtained before. So that's why we call it primary data. So usually original research articles will be very lengthy, and they have various components, including hypotheses. You make an hypothesis about a particular study area. They'll have a background, which means that you're largely talking about how did you really get to that particular study question, what led to that story. So give us more background about the area, methods, results, interpretation of those results, discussion, and possible implications of the research results that you have. Maybe I need to say at this point that most publications, most articles fall under this category of original research article. They tend to take some time though. And so these are the ones that will take maybe a lot of your time when you're working on them, especially on getting that data. Very close to original research article is what we call clinical trial. So this will be unique to the field of medicine. Original research article you can find anywhere within medicine or outside medicine, but definitely clinical trials are unique to the field of medicine. Very close to original research, but they're largely clinical. So usually they tend to describe more of methodology and implementation and results of controlled studies. Perhaps you are trying a particular drug out, and you have 2 sets of categories of people, and you're trying a particular drug. So one category, you give them one drug, and another category, you give them another drug. These ones tend to work with very large groups of people because you're working on individuals. So those are the ones which are actually where you're going to get your data. So usually you'll be having like more than 1,000 people. In most cases, very large groups, even 10,000, I've seen studies of that kind. What I want to note at this point is that clinical trials require most of the time some practical work experience. So maybe as an undergraduate, you may not, this is not one of those ones that you really want to try because they require some practical work experience. as well as some high levels of ethics and reliability. Of course, that one you can achieve by just maintaining high levels of ethics, but because you may not be having the work experience, this is not one of those areas I want to encourage you to start with, unless you're working with someone who is already in that field. You're already in a team, and in that team, there is one person who is senior, who is able to run with it. So you're part of a big team, then that's okay. But on your own, this might be a bit challenging for you if you are in undergraduate studies. Original research you can do anytime. Clinical trials might be a bit challenging. But another one that is also interesting is what we call a letter to the editor. A letter to the editor provides brief communication of particular data. This data is the data you've gotten from your original research, but you believe that's interesting, and you also believe that it's likely to stimulate further research in that field. Most of the time, people do letter to the editor if you think that the results there are of time limit. For example, in this season, I like using the COVID because that's where we are in right now. Suppose you are doing a research and you just realize that actually, in as much as hydrochloroquine could be used in COVID-19 pneumonia, perhaps patients presenting with complications of chloroquine are also more. So suppose when you are treating patients with hydroxychloroquine, you realize that patients are getting a lot of complications in that area. And so you want to communicate that very fast. You can do a letter to the editor to indicate the complications or the side effects of hydroxychloroquine in the management of COVID pneumonia as a letter to the editor before the big research that you're going to carry out can come out. Because perhaps you just have a data of 100 patients, but in the original research, you may want to include maybe 1,000 patients. So that is the essence of a letter to the editor. Usually they have very strict length limits. You'll be told not more than 500 words, not more than 1,000 words, and those are very short communications. Usually when you write them, they'll be half a page, not even a full page in a journal article. Then we have what we call review article. So review article tend to provide critical and constructive analysis of existing published literature, which means that now review article is not handling primary literature, but is handling secondary literature. The literature is already in the field. And it provides comprehensive summary, analysis, and comparison between different studies. So you compare results of one study with another one. So in so doing, review articles will also be identifying some gaps or problems which have been seen in those studies that it is trying to describe. And usually they also give recommendations for future research. Again, review articles require that you are a leader in a particular discipline. Not all the time though, but it will be important that if you're giving us a summary on the accurate management of a particular disease, that you are actually an authority in that field. So for example, if you want to tell us more about pathogenesis of acute myocardial infarction, yes, you can do that after reading a lot. That is true, you can give us a summary of that. But again, you can actually do it better if you are an authority in that field. Let's say you're a cardiologist, for example. So you know more about acute myocardial infarction, then you can tell us more about it. If you are a chest physician, you can give us a review article on COVID pneumonia. I'm not saying that now an undergraduate cannot do that. I'm just saying that an authority in that field is usually better placed to do a review article. And sometimes there are restrictions even from the journal aspect. Some journals don't publish review articles. If you are not an authority in that field, they'll not publish it. So it's also good to know that if you are interested in doing a review article, it will be important first to find out the journal you are sending it to, what are their requirements. All in all, I'll still encourage undergraduates to be doing review articles because this is one of the areas of research where you actually don't spend a lot. Maybe the only thing you spend is your time and internet. But in terms of money, in terms of buying reagents, there's none because you're just reading what is in the literature. So I'll still encourage you to be doing review articles where you're able to. If you know a particularly interesting topic and you want to read more about it, it's a good area to actually venture in. But remember that they might be very lengthy. Some of them give, some journals will give you limits, maybe 10,000 words, 40,000 words. And they'll also tell you the number of articles that you must review. Some will give you 70 references, 100 references, 150 references. So they can be very lengthy. The other one is what I'm calling case reports or a case study. So this one usually highlights specific instances of interesting phenomena. For example, in the management of a particular case, you noted something very unique that you've never seen before. Or if you are in first year, you are dissecting, you see this particular variation that you've never seen before. So that becomes something very specific and interesting phenomena. You can do a case report about it. So we tend to call them case reports, largely from preclinical perspectives. The clinical perspectives like calling them case studies, but basically they're the same thing. They'll tend to report occurrences which were not known before, or they're very rare, or they have there's some emerging pathology that are coming up from a particular region. So the goal of case reports or case studies is to make other researchers be aware of the possibility of a particular specific phenomena occurring. For example, if a patient with COVID pneumonia presented with the limb gangrene, that could be a case report for now because we've not seen much of limb gangrene due to COVID infection. So that's what I'm saying. Those unique things, they are put as case reports. However, if many patients present with limb gangrene after getting a coronavirus infection, then it no longer becomes a case report. It will be more of now review of literature. Right, so those are the types of articles that are there. I've given you 5 of them. The clinical trials might not be one of those that you want to try in. So the other 4 are easily available. And especially case reports are very easy to write. Very short, very easy to write, straightforward. The reading is very easy. The number of references could be 10. Very easy, straightforward. I'll encourage you, if you see something very interesting in your studies, in the wards, do a case report, very straightforward. So what's the process that you'll be going through as you want to publish an article? First, there'll be that time that you need to prepare the manuscript. Then you'll need to submit that manuscript. Then that manuscript will need to go through review process. And I'll take you through those 3. So the first one is the preparation. Preparation will largely depend on the type of the article that you want to publish. Is it a case report? Is it a review of literature? Is it an original research article? Is it a letter to the editor? It will depend on that type of article that you're publishing. Now, for each of those, they tend to have some standard outlines. And these outlines will be available in most journals. So usually try to write it in such a way that it is following that standard outline. And if you don't know the standard outline of a particular article, it's okay to just go to the internet and check the outline of a particular article. The other way of doing it is if you open journal articles in a particular journal, examples of articles, you'll see the outline, the general outline. After seeing 2, 3 of them, you'll actually be aware of what is expected of you. So manuscript preparation will be the one that will take you a long time, but the one that largely depends on your commitment. It's the one that is largely depending on your time. Have you committed enough to it? Are you writing it constantly? And what I've found easier is that it's good to just focus on it and finish it over 2 days rather than be working on it for, let's say, 30 minutes per week for several weeks. I find it easier if you just say this afternoon, I'm going to sit on this, and you do it. It's much easier that way. After you've prepared the manuscript, you'll need to take it through publishing. Now, it is important for you to know that not all journals will publish every kind of article. A journal of anatomy may not publish something in pneumonia. A journal of physiology may not publish something in variations, anatomic variations of the kidney. So it is important for you to know which journal is relevant for your article. Most journals, if not all, will provide you with accurate and specific guidelines for the different types of articles that they publish. So they'll tell you they publish literature reviews, they publish original research, letter to the editor, case studies, and the like. There are those that don't publish some of them like case studies, so they'll just tell you they don't publish those ones. Now, what is important is that when you get to the website of a particular journal, it is important that you read. Usually there's a link to instruction to authors, or some of them call them guidelines to authors. And this is what will provide you with the information you need to comply to for that particular journal. Because again, we realize
Okay, I think we're experiencing, Dr. Beda is experiencing technical difficulties on his side. Can someone confirm, can Yasir please confirm that it's not me with the internet problem?
No, it's not you. I think he's having some technical issues here.
Okay, so what we can do is we wait for him to reconnect. We can push forward our icebreaker session. Is that okay, Yasir?
We go ahead with icebreaker?
Yes, so that we give him some time to sort out his issue, his connection issue.
Just a minute. So for those who never had, I can see we are over 100 students students who have attended. So for those who have not had a chance to maybe give us their thoughts on what they would do if they had an opportunity to change your world, to change the world. If they had an opportunity to run the world, what would you change? Yeah, so kindly tell us, let us know as we wait for Dr. Beda to reconnect. So let us know. Use the code 48343 as we wait for Dr. Beda, and tell us what your thoughts are. If you, what would you change if you ran the world? Yeah, kindly let us know your thoughts as we wait for Dr. Beda. So go to www.menti.com and use the code 48343 and let us know what you would do. If you'd like to speak, kindly raise your hand up. If you'd like to speak about anything that you would do to change if you ran the world, raise your hand. There's a small hand icon. Raise it up, and I will unmute you, and you can speak as we wait for our speaker. Well, this is a really interesting one. I would change the narcissistic nature of human beings. Okay, so let's get in the responses. Bidian Okot. Hello, Bidian.
Hello.
Hi, Bidian. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yes.
So if I would change the world, then I would make research a basic education for people when they are in their primary school, like basic education. They should be introduced to some of these skills when they are younger, so that they're identifying skills like problem identifications and start identifying loopholes even as they are growing in different careers, so that you are growing knowing what loophole you're going to sort. I think that's what I would change.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bidian, for that. I mean, research should not be something that should only be limited to undergraduates or postgraduates or university students. You can also start doing research in high school. It can be really simple, like how many of you are using plastic straws in school, or those things, anything related to environmental change, or just understanding mental health in high school. So thank you, Bidian, for raising that important point. Maybe Dr. Beda or one of the speakers could tell us if high school kids can publish papers as well. Anyone who would like to speak or raise their hand? You can raise your hand and I will unmute you. In the meantime, you can contribute to this Menti. What would you change if you ran the world? So this is a really interesting response. I would make medical care free. Everyone should receive the best medical service, irrespective of their financial capability, as life should not have a price tag. Yes, absolutely. I guess a lot of people are trying to, if you've heard of universal health coverage, getting having medical care free, absolutely, as you'll see in the current moment, is not very possible. However, making it more accessible and improving the quality of care, and of course making accessibility is one of them, is reducing the costs, so more people have access to finance. Again, a lot of it has to do with policies, which someone has mentioned, having stronger policies. So someone would like to make education system more interactive than to keep it just restricted to books and wall of school. You're my friend. Would you like to unmute whoever has given this response? This is so interesting. Like, we've always been told that education is all about the more the books, the better you are. So yes, would you like to unmute? Vedika Patil, you can unmute your mic.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Vedika. Yes,
Hello.
kindly tell us where you are from and and what would you like to say?
Hello,
Hello?
everyone. I'm from India.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us from India.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, what would you like to say, Vedika? Or would you like to make a comment?
Actually, today, we had education system policy changes been going on in India currently. So, and I'm studying in foreign. So, by seeing the foreign education and Indian education, I would like to bring the changes more to education system because it is the most pillar and the basis which could bring most of the changes in the world. So that's why I think education system should be the most prior thing we should put forward for the young generations.
Thank you very much, Vedika. And changing systems are education system, like for example, having more research being taught to us in our schools and encouraging students to do research. That's one of them. Changing systems requires having data, evidence-based data, and having evidence-based data can only be done through through research. So Vedika, would you tell us more about how research is done among medical students in India? Would you like to give us an insight on that?
Yeah, actually research is done more on the clinical basis. We have a lot of the population to go under through many cases. So that's a plus point for India. So that we provide more practical knowledge which help us to go to the research center. Like I am first year medical student, so I don't have scope about it, but just a slight knowledge what my seniors does in research field.
Wow, thank you very much, Vedika. I can really envision you being a great researcher in the future. So thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us all the way from India. We have someone, Mohammed Gedi. You can unmute your mic and speak. Yeah.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly introduce yourself and tell us
Thank you. Thank you.
About on research. Yes.
I'm Mohammed Gedish from Somalia and Somali Medical Association, and I would like to say that I would like to say that I will change the policies regarding to research in the medical schools, and I would like to change everything medical research. And research as first priorities for medical research in order to evidence-based medicine to change the problems around the world. And I would like to change in my view that to get quality and affordable health care in all the human, regardless their income and their color and where they live, urban or rural areas. That's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed Gedi. First of all, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Somalia. And thank you very much for your insight. And I can see future global health leaders amongst us and people who are really enthusiastic about healthcare equity, equality, and of course, research. So our speaker is back on. Dr. Beda.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
So very sorry, we got a blackout suddenly from my end. I didn't envision it. My apologies. We can now proceed. So I was talking to you about the process of publishing an article. And I mentioned that I'll talk to you about manuscript preparation, submission process and requirements, and review process. I'd already talked about manuscript preparation. So I'll take you to where the blackout got us. and that's the submission process and requirements. So I mentioned that journals will not publish all kinds of articles, so you need to know what your journal actually publishes. I also mentioned that all journals will have an instruction on the specific guidelines on the type of articles that they do publish. So it's good for you to be aware of that. And I told you that in any web page of a journal, there'll be somewhere written instruction to authors or guidelines to authors. So that's what you need to read keenly, then comply to the format that are given you. They'll tend to give you format concerning the outline of your article, the word count. Some journals will tell you that your abstract should not be more than 250 words or 300 words or 500 words. So if they do tell you that, you comply with that one. Some of them will give you a format of reference. So again, you comply with that one. They'll also restrict you, or they may restrict you on the type of pictures that you give and even their pixel quality. So again, it is important that you stick to those ones because those are the ones that will make your journal, your article not be published. You need to comply with the requirements of a particular journal. Now we cannot discuss that here because different journals will have different requirements. So what is important is that you know their requirements and there's nothing cast on stone. That's not where the science is. That's just a matter of formatting. But it's important that you comply with them so that your article is not rejected by that specific journal. Most of the submissions will be online. A number of journals usually have a website where you submit your article, but a few of them still use email. So the ones that use email, you just email the article to the editor, and they'll have given you the email address for the editor of that particular journal. Now, about review process, there are two levels of review that I want you to be aware of. There is the review process before you submit your article. This is still important. And this can be done by your colleagues, your mentors, those who are senior to you, those who are junior to you. Anyone who is willing to review your article can actually review your article because they're just reading to see whether it's making sense, whether what you are writing there is coherent and things like that. They're the ones that also help you to note some minor spelling mistakes and the like, where there's supposed to be a comma, you put a comma or a full stop. They are important and I think they're valuable. But that's not what we really call review process in publications. Most cases, the one we call in review process in publication is the review that the journal that you've submitted your article to will subject your article to. Now, this is a role of the editor. It's not really your role. Once you've submitted your article to a particular journal, that's it. You wait for their communication. So at that side of the journal, the editor is the one that's going to find the reviewers. And most cases, there are two reviewers for each article, in most cases. So they're the ones going to find the reviewers for that particular article. And they tend to be blinded in such a way that I may have sent a particular article to your journal. So what you do if you're the editor is that you take that article and give it to someone else without necessarily revealing my name. So they'll be reading the article, but they don't know this article is from who. So they're blinded, that's what I mean. Again, when I get reviewers' comments, I will not know which reviewer is this. Their identity is usually concealed. So you'll just be seeing things like reviewer 1 and reviewer 2 comments, so that we tend to be objective in the review process. So in most cases, that's what is called the peer review process of the journal. But you can also do your review process before you submit your article to the journal. This one here, the first one, is not mandatory. is not a requirement. And when you are sending it for publication, you don't have to declare whether you've been reviewed or not. It's not a requirement. But this one is a requirement from the journal's end to review so that the papers that they publish are actually good quality articles. There's a few journals that will accept suggestions. Maybe you want your paper to be reviewed by a particular person. They accept suggestions, but they're not obliged to respect them. Right, so as I finish, what's my personal experience in publishing? I told you that I've published over 70 publications from the time I was in third year, and that was in 2005, 2006 there. In my experience, I've done more of the original research articles than any other format. And this is usually because they're the ones that, in as much as they take time, they're the ones that you actually learn more from them. They're the ones that it will take you time though, but they're the ones that help you even own up the research so much to the very end. And they're the ones that you're able to come up, read through, get a particular research question, collect the data, and write it and take it home. Case reports are easier to do, much easier to do than original research articles. However, the problem is that they're hard to come across. In my experience, I've only done 2 case reports out of the over 70 publications. Not because I was not interested in, but because they're a bit hard to come across. Or when they do come across, the people who don't have the research articles usually like them easily. And so it's okay. And that's why I'm also encouraging you people. Case reports are very easy to do. If you see some interesting phenomena, pick it up, publish it. Also, in my experience, I've noted that some articles will take a short time to publication. There are those that actually took a month or less, but there are those that will take very long as even a year. And that can be because of first delay on my end. Maybe I started the process of publishing this thing, then I dragged along the way, and so you prolong that time. But also on the other end of the journal, there's some journals that will take long. So it's important that you know the journal that you're submitting your paper to, how frequent do they publish? Is it per month? Is it twice a month? Or is it every quarter, which means 4 times a year? Is it every half a year? So depending on the duration of the publication, your paper would delay. The journals that publish every month have a faster way of publishing, but they're also the ones that are also high end in terms of quality of research. The ones that publish twice a year are a bit low end, but they also take time. I've noted that research actually requires a lot of commitment and self-discipline. And I'm saying self-discipline because this is an area where you are the one who has to honor your own deadlines. The deadlines are not put by the school. You see, today, if I tell you that you have a CAT tomorrow and you must have submitted this assignment before that CAT, you will actually comply because I'm the one who has given the deadline. But in research, in most cases, you're the one who put that deadline and you're the one who has to honor it. So if you're not self-disciplined, many times you will disregard those deadlines and it will drag you. It's also important to note at this point that there are many, okay, maybe not many times, but there are times that you'll get discouragement from research. And it's important to mention it so that when it happens to you, you don't give up. You don't say that is just for you. One of the discouragement will be because of unmet deadlines or goals. Maybe you said this year, I want to publish 4 publications. Come the end of the year, you have none. That can be discouraging. But another one that is usually discouraging is when you've written something very nice, you've committed your time, you've given a lot of attention to it, you submit it to a journal, then it's rejected. You get that sorry email. We are not able to do this. And some of them give you reasons why they're not able to publish your research. Now that can actually be very discouraging, especially you feel like you've invested a lot of time on it. What I want to say is that in my experience, if I have 4 articles that I am submitting for the first time, I won't lie to you that I'm expecting all of them to be accepted. In most cases, one will be accepted subject to minor changes, and that's a good thing. 2 of them, if there are 4 or 5, 2 of them, let's say there are 5, 1 will be going straight away with minor changes. Then 2 will be going but with major changes, and 2 or 3 will actually get rejected. When an article is rejected, that does not mean there's a bad research. It may mean that, yes, but it can also mean that you just didn't take it to the right journal, or you didn't comply to some of the recommendations that they gave you. So in most cases, what you do is that because they'll have given you some reviewer feedback, you incorporate those feedbacks, then take to another journal. You don't give up on it and say, now that's end. No, you just take it to another journal. So there'll also be time that you feel overwhelmed. I've actually felt overwhelmed sometimes and overloaded. But those are the times that I was trying to mix research with maybe I had a lot of research work ahead of me on my table. And then at the time I have exams, maybe I told I'm doing residency. And maybe at the time that even the school I'm teaching, UON, they have exam season. So there's a lot of things at the same time that can be overwhelming. But I've realized that one way of working out this is just organize your time. Try to commit to the research, yes, that's true, but also put in a time that you know that you are able to give it your best. So don't put at a time that there's a lot of competing interest. For example, you as an undergraduate student, if you are going to write a research article, just commit to that time when you've done your cuts or the exam is over. That week after the season of cuts is a good time to write a research article because you're not under pressure, as opposed to doing it during an exam season, which you can't manage. I've also noted that it takes time to start, and especially to do the first publication will take some time. But also that first publication is an icebreaker on its own. The moment you see that article has been published, you'll have that appetite to just do another one and another one. But before the first one, it will take time. This is from experience. It doesn't mean that it has to happen to you. Maybe it has already happened to you because look at where you are right now. Maybe you would have published many papers by now, but you haven't. So you can just start right away now. Now, once an article is published, what I like about it is that I call it irreversible fulfillment. What I mean is this, that once an article is published in your name, it's already given, it's there, it's permanent. Nobody can take it away, usually. Nobody will take it away. So it's that fulfillment that you have all day of your life, the rest of your life. It's a good thing. I would encourage you that use those who have gone ahead of you to help you make your earlier steps in publications. They are very important. For me, there are people who are ahead of me. For those of you who remember, Professor Saidi is the one who really helped me a lot, and Professor Oji, you know. They're the ones who really helped me a lot in making my first publication. I didn't even know how to write. They're the ones who helped me edit it. After I've written, they helped me to edit it. I didn't know how to take it for publication. They're the ones who showed me, this is how you find a journal, this is how you do this. And eventually it went well. So when you use the people who have gone ahead of you, it will be easier for you because you'll not be feeling like this is too much. Lastly, the role of teamwork is invaluable. My over 70 publications, I told you, none of them, I am the only author. I've done this with groups of people, different types of people. It has been the most fulfilling thing, again, in research. Just having a team around you and you agree that we work together helps you to move on. If I was to do this on my own, I wouldn't be in article number 10 by now, based on how I know myself and my speed. But because I worked as a team, this has been fulfilling. So teamwork is invaluable in research. Thank you very much. And once again, sorry for the network issues that we got along the way, but that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. for the presentation. I'm sure it's shed a lot of light on publishing a chat box. So just keep posting your questions and we will address them in the Q&A. So we move on to over 19 experience in the International Livestock Research Institute and CAMRI, the Medical Research Institute, as well as the Walter Reed Program, Henry Jackson Foundation,
Hello? Seems like we are lost or something.
So, guys, I think the power today in Nairobi is a bit unstable. Welcome, Dr. Samuel.
Okay, so I can go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so my name is Samuel Hamadi, and as is mentioned there, and I'm currently working in Tanzania with the Walter Reed Program, which is a research organization, and I am a CAMRI employee, and I just want to take you through publishing a research paper from my perspective and also personal experience. So I'll take you through importance of publishing, ethics of publishing, and then I'll finish with my personal experiences. I just want to take you to a statement here that says that medicine is a science of uncertainty and an art of probability. And this is a statement that is quoted by that person, and he says that knowing what is probable, what is unlikely, and what is truly ridiculous makes one a better diagnostician. And I just want to say that medical journals and journals in general provide a forum for disseminating research knowledge, and they provide a forum for sharing vital information to students, teachers, and researchers. And as a researcher, I would say that we do not write because we want to, but because we have to, and we are duty bound to do this. And it is said that if research is not published, then it is almost as good as research that has not been carried out. And I just want to quote an example here that was given by one person who wrote this article in January, and it's about COVID-19. And this person says that on January 4th, most of us were easing back into the research lab and teaching routine after a well-deserved holiday break. Few of us paid much heed to a document that had been written by science writer Helen Baswell. And with the benefit of hindsight, we should have. Because this person documented something that was happening and what we now refer to as COVID-19 or coronavirus infection. And if scientists and researchers in general, especially where the virus originated, had given heed to what had been written, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today. And so this just gives an example of why publishing is very important. So I just delve into why publishing is important. And as our previous presenter said, it gives us an opportunity for reporting what we are doing. And it gives us a global forum to do this. However small what your research is, if you publish it with this current, where we are now, it appears on social media, on internet, people are able to access it, then it gives you an opportunity to report what you are doing. And secondly, which is also very important, is that research provides us with a forum for connecting with other researchers who are doing similar work. And I can say from my experience in doing HIV research, I've been able to connect and even collaborate with other people that I didn't know before because of the work that I published with my colleagues, and other people saw it and they got interested. And something else that is very important is that research provides us with an opportunity to improve on our writing and research skills, as we are able to get feedback on what we have published. So when you write a publication and it is reviewed by your peers, maybe your colleagues at work, they'll give you feedback and you'll be able to improve on that. And then apart from that, when you're going through the publication process, what normally happens is that in many cases, a paper will not be accepted just on the first trial. It will be sent back with maybe minor corrections and so forth and so on. And as you make these corrections, you get to a point where you are learning and understanding what you need to do better. It also gives us, as I have said, a unique learning opportunity. When you're publishing, one of the things that we'll do is that you will do a lot of research. For example, if you're publishing on pediatrics, HIV in pediatric population, you'll do a background journal checks, and you shall do literature searches. And even as you do this, you get to learn what people are doing out there. And then you get to get information from other researchers by reading what they have done and even connecting with them in some cases. Because sometimes you can get an article online and it is not complete, and you have to contact the person who wrote the article, and then they'll write back to you. And in some cases, you can even call them, and then they will give you more information that you didn't have. And as I said in the first point, publishing makes everyone in the field aware of the research you have conducted. And people would, at the end of the day, benefit from what you have written, however simple it is. For some of us who make our bread and butter from publishing, we actually do this for other reasons, like to gain respect of our peers, and also to boost our CVs. And like myself, I can say that I am through and through a researcher, and when I apply for jobs out there, people will ask you, can you tell us how much you have published? And maybe you can send them a link, maybe in PubMed, and then they can be able to see what you've published, and they can actually rate you based on what you have published. And publishing in peer-reviewed journals helps you your research to go through a rigorous peer review process. And as I said previously, it helps you to improve the quality of your papers and your research in general. And in some organizations like the Kenya Medical Research Institute, where I'm affiliated to, publishing is a way of evaluating performance. So the more you published, the more you are respected by your peers. And even for promotions, in some cases, in some organizations, they actually ask you to present your most recent publications, where maybe you are the first author or the second author. And by so doing, it shows that you are active in research. And something else that is very important is that it helps to prove to the funding agencies that you actually did something worthwhile with the funding that you received. So like those of us who are in research, sometimes we get donor funding. And one of the goals at the end of the day is that you must publish. Otherwise, the donors will not be able to gauge what you did with the money they gave you. Something that I need to point out that's very important is that a publication is only as good as the publisher. And so even as you write a publication and post it out there, make sure that you give it your best shot, because at the end of the day, when people look at your publication, they can judge what type of person you are. So if it is a mediocre publication, then people will think maybe you're not serious with research, because unfortunately, sometimes some journals will publish your work, however bad it may be. And unfortunately, when other people read it, they may think that maybe you are not serious in your research. So I'll talk briefly about ethics of publishing. It is very important that when we publish work that we have done ourselves or we have done with our colleagues. And this work must be original. And it is important that when you publish, you do not send your publications like to 2 different journals at the same time. And that's why journal articles, reviewers will even ask you when you're filling the forms if this work has been sent somewhere else for publication. Because if you do the same thing and the same paper is published in 2 different places, then it is unethical. So you need to make sure that you're not republishing the same findings. And as I've said, you should not submit your work to 2 different journals at the same time, because chances are, if both of them accept it, then it will get you into a lot of trouble. And sometimes people get tempted. They say they want to publish a lot of work and a lot of papers. And sometimes if you're doing a big project, you can think that if you break your papers into small, tiny publications, then you'll have more publications. But sometimes it can be unethical, because it actually waters down the quality of the work that you've done, and even as you're publishing it. And something else that is very important in ethics of publishing is to do with research integrity. When you publish, you must be honest and publish verifiable methods that you have used for doing your research. And when you publish work, somebody else can read that article, and if he does the same research or if he uses the same methods in the lab, the person should be able to get the same results. So for example, my background, I do a lot of molecular work, and sometimes we do like HIV sequencing, and there are some publications that actually talk about the primers you should use for doing polymerase chain reaction in the lab and the conditions for doing the PCR. So these methods, if I use them here in Kenya, I should be able to get the same results as the person who did that work before. So make sure that when you publish, you are publishing, your work is honest and verifiable. And sometimes people can steal some information, can copy information from one paper and put it in their paper, and they publish this work. So that is what is called plagiarism. Fortunately, nowadays, there are tools, online tools that can actually be able to see if you have falsified data or if you have copied data from elsewhere. So it is important that if you have copied data from somewhere, that you quote it and you also reference it so that you give credit to the person who has published that work before. So I'll just say that some of the good publication practices is important to avoid misrepresentation in publications. And as I've said previously, publish accurate, complete, clear, and unbiased work. And then thirdly, avoid fragmentary publication. As I've said previously, sometimes you can just be taking pieces of work you've done and publishing because you want to have 5 publications or 10 publications. So make sure that whatever you publish is comprehensive. And then publish manuscripts that represent substantial findings. And this is very important in the medical field or in the research field in general, because when we read an article, and sometimes articles will be, that we submit for publications will be accepted because of the quality and the substantiveness of the work that you have written. So if you send shallow work to be published, it may end up being published in journals that have very low impact factors, or it may be rejected altogether. And as I've said previously, also avoid duplicate manuscript submissions. And something that is very important that we can also think about is to publish research that will add new contributions to the field. So even as young scientists or young medics, there are a lot of things that you find out there. And as Dr. Beda has said, you can actually publish some of the case findings you see in your medical practice. And as long as they are original, it actually adds value to the community of science. And as I've said previously, please acknowledge prior publications in your citations and referencing. And then something that's also very important is please avoid use of unauthorized confidential information. So for example, when we are doing our research work, we interview people in some cases, and these people tell us their names and so forth. And what we normally do is that we code the names so that when we are publishing the work, especially if you're publishing qualitative work, and you have to quote what somebody said, then you don't have to write the name of the person. You can use a code. Or if you're providing information that is sensitive, you should think twice before you do that. And that's why it says that you should avoid use of unauthorized confidential information. So something else I wanted to touch about is that even as we publish, one thing that we need to know that we have different journals, and journals, the importance of journals is based on what we call the impact factor. So the impact factor, as I've said, there is a measure of the frequency with which the average, with which the journal has been cited in a particular year. So this is used to measure the importance or rank of journal by calculating the number of times the journal has been cited. So this calculation is based on a 2-year period, and it involves dividing the number of times the articles were cited by the number of articles that are citable. So for example, if you are doing an impact factor for 2010 of a journal, you have like A, which is the number of times the articles have been published in 2008 and 2009, and that were cited by index journals during that period. And B is the number of citable items published in 2008 and 2009. So if you divide A over B, you end up coming up with a 2010 impact factor for that journal. So the more a journal is cited, the more higher an impact factor it has. And so as I've said, impact factors can be used to measure the importance of a journal. And I will not go into the details because of time, but I just want to say that good journals have an impact factor of like between 4 to 6. And there are some journals that have a lower impact factor, but they're still good journals. And I just I'll mention this briefly as I go along. So if you look at this curve here, it shows actually the impact factor as it goes up. So for example, if you look at Journal of Nature Genetics, that is at the top there, it has a very high impact factor. It means these journals are the top there, like Nature, Lancet. These journals are very high impact factors. And many times there are very few accomplished scientists who are able to publish their work here, because the publications have very strict guidelines and they go through a very rigorous process of review. And then we have journals like PLOS ONE and others that have a low impact factor, but are still very good journals. And I just wanted to say that, having said what I've said, is that the impact factor is not everything. And I'll say that the impact factor is not a tool for evaluating the quality of research, because peer review is usually performed by committees with general competencies than with the specialist insights. So in most cases, you'll find a very good paper has been published, like in the paper of, like the New England Journal of Medicine, or the Lancet, and so forth, or Nature Medicine. And sometimes, if our papers are refused there, then we feel like, okay, maybe my research is not as good as it should be. So the journal impact factors actually depend on the research field. And as I've said down there, is that it is important to be strategic about where we place our work, and to make sure that the right people notice it. And so when you're publishing and you're a young scientist, maybe you're just starting, like our colleague said, started publishing when he was in third year, it is always advisable to start with papers that have low impact factors, because chances are that if you aim very high, you may get discouraged or disappointed. And as I've said, the important thing in many cases is to get your work published, and in reputable journals, even if they have low impact factors. So when you are choosing where to publish, we should choose journals that are visible, because sometimes we have what we call open access journals versus the traditional journals that are called closed access, that you have to pay for to be able to access them. And even for your colleagues to be able to read your work, they have to pay for it. And in many cases, people will not pay for, especially here in Africa, you'll find that because of such certain challenges, that people normally do not pay for journal articles. They go online and they try to look for open access journals, and if they're not accessible, then they will not access them. So think about the visibility of your work. Think also about the cost, because some journals are publishing there is very expensive. Think about the impact factor and consider what I have mentioned. Think about the speed at which it will take for that work to be published. As my colleague, Dr. Beda has said, sometimes it's important to think about the speed with which the work will be published. I remember when I was doing my master's and even my PhD, we were required to publish at least three papers before we graduated. And so one of the things I did is that I looked for a paper a journal that was able to publish my work as fast as possible, like within 6 months, so that by the time I wanted to defend my thesis, I would have those publications. So if you look for journals that take a long time, then you can actually get into the trap of not being able to publish on time. And then something else that I've learned also from personal experience is that it is important to look for credible journals. And I'm saying this because when you publish your work, there are some people out there who have journals and they're not credible, and they start writing to you telling you they want you to publish your work in their paper, in their journals. And if you're not careful, you may find you're publishing your work in a journal that is not credible. And at the end of the day, it cannot even be cited. So I've talked about online presence. I also want to mention that reputable journals are well indexed, and this is something that we also need to think about. So before you choose where to publish your work, do an online search. You can search on PubMed, you can check in Google Scholar and other online databases, and look at the journals that are published there and see the quality of the work that is there. And also look at the publication history of the journal, and this will help you to make a decision of whether to publish there or not. Something else that is also important is to look at the editorial board. So the editorial board will tell you how serious a journal is, because you'll find reputable journals have very senior people or reputable scientists or medics who are actually sitting on the publication board. And then it's also important to look at the scope of the journal. What does it normally cover before you send your paper there for publication? Because in some cases, a paper may be rejected because you have sent it to the wrong journal. Having said that, I just want to say that at the end of the day, we should note that perfect should not be the enemy of good, because all of us have to start somewhere. So when you're starting your publication journey, look for journals and read journals where and submit your papers to journals where you know that your paper can actually be accepted. And don't wait until maybe you are linked to a very senior person, or you have a lot of good work that when you think of publishing. As long as your work is good, try to publish it. It doesn't have to be perfect science for you to publish, because there is no such thing as perfect science. So I will conclude by talking about my personal experience in publishing. As I've said, start small. Like myself, I started publishing like short communications when I was doing my master's and my PhD. And I remember publishing like 3 papers before I graduated, and because this was a requirement. And the other thing is look for like-minded peers. So whether you are in college or whether you are out there, you're working out there, look for like-minded peers whom you can work with, because for you to publish your work, maybe it needs some analysis, maybe it needs some literature search. So you can work with senior people and juniors who can add to what you have already come up with. And something I've also learned is try to do focused research, because sometimes we are tempted to stretch out and in our early stages of our careers, and sometimes you get frustrated because you have really stretched yourself out and you end up doing so many things but not mastering any of them. So like myself, when I started doing my research work, I started off as a molecular biologist, and then I decided to focus more on HIV and AIDS research and infectious diseases. So those are areas that I am working on even as I try to publish my work. And then at the end of the day, even as you do literature searches and read other journals, look for people who are doing similar work. And at the end of the day, chances are that you can get people you can collaborate with and work with to even develop yourself. And be patient even as you publish. Like I know there are times when I've written a paper and I've sent it for publication together with my colleagues, and the paper was rejected. And then we had to rewrite the paper and send it to another journal, because some journals will tell you, unfortunately, do not submit to us. So you have to look for another place. And then also spend a lot of time online. And even as you publish, make sure that your work is visible online. So I've just mentioned some of the places you can get your journals published, like Perfect, LinkedIn, and Google Scholar, among others. Yeah. So in conclusion, I'll say that these are some of the references that I cited as I was writing this, preparing this presentation, and I'll share this PowerPoint so that it can be shared with others. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it is important that even as you publish, that you put your best foot forward as you put your work out there, because your work speaks for you. People may not know you, people may not see you, they may never meet you. And so when you put your work out, it actually should be able to speak on your behalf. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Dr. Samuel. And we're glad to hear that you will make the PowerPoint available to those who would like to go through, because there's some questions in the chat box where people are asking if they can access the presentations later on. There's a lot of gratitude in the chat box to Dr. Beda and Dr. Samuel as well from the audience. I think people are quite enjoying the content you guys are giving us. We have several questions that have been answered by our speakers in the Q&A box, but we did have questions from the pre-webinar survey, and we have people who would like to ask their questions live as well. So to take us through the Q&A session, we have Gagandip Pogal. Welcome, Gagandip.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gagandip Pogal. So I'm here to take you through the Q&A session. If anyone would like to ask any of their questions live, please raise your hand and the host will be able to unmute you. So we can get started with the Q&A. A question for Dr. Samuel. How can a medical student get people or institutions to do research work with them? Maybe if we wait for Dr. Samuel. Another question for Dr.
Sorry, can you come again?
The question is, how can a medical student get people or institutions to do research work with them?
Okay, so I think I can say from my own experience, if you approach people, like for example, those ones who are here in Nairobi, they can even come to the Kenya Medical Research Institute and talk to, they can contact some of us, or they can actually contact some of the lecturers who are teaching at the university. Some of them are actually our colleagues, we work with them, but they are also medics. So I think you can get in touch with somebody who is already involved in research, and then we can follow up. If you are interested, then you can be linked to somebody doing research. They can mentor you and so forth and so on. Yeah, so it's possible.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. You can also, if you're from Kenya, you can also get in touch with your RePub campus representatives to be able to assist you on how you can get started with your research. Dr. Beda, a question for you. Is it difficult to be published as an undergraduate student?
No, it's not difficult. As a matter of fact, my first publications were when I was undergraduate.
Thank you. Dr. Samuel, how can you pick a journal for your publication? So how do you pick a journal for your publication?
Okay, sorry, come again. It seems like I didn't get you properly.
So how do you pick a journal when you want to publish your work?
Okay, so there are a lot of journals online. So for example, if I can use my experience, like I'm doing HIV research and maybe I'm doing molecular biology, I will search online journals that have published work similar to what I'm doing, and then I'll look at what is required if I want to publish there. So that is the starting point. So you can identify 4 or 5 journals that are involved in similar work to what you're doing, and then you can look at the instructions for publishing with them, and then you can make an informed decision based on that. Yeah.
Thank you. We've got a question in the chat box from Mohammed Gedi. So would you like to answer your question live? If yes, you can just raise your hand and the host will be able to unmute you. Maybe in the meantime, we can highlight some of the questions that have been asked before. So on our chat box, we had a question from Ryan Grant from West Indies, who asked, is it okay to send submissions of a publication to multiple journals at once? And Dr. Beda has answered for that question, saying it's usually not allowed as it is unethical. So you should send one publication at a time to each. You should send one at a time. So if Mohammed would want to answer the question online, if not, Dr. Beda, this question is for you. My question is regarding the publication process. When I want to submit an article into a journal, into a journal, and before accepting, is there a required fee to publish my article, or are there any journals that are free? Dr. Beda?
Oh, I noted that I answered it in the chat as well, but fine. There are journals which charge, there are journals which are free. What I'd encourage undergraduates, and especially if you're struggling financially, you can still find journals which are free and you start your publication process. Out of the journals that have published over 70 publications, I think only 20 of them were in charged journals. 50 of them or so are in free journals.
Thank you. A question for Dr. Samuel. How does one become credible enough to become a first author in research?
Okay, so normally research is done by several people, and becoming a first author, like the person who conceived the idea, is normally the first author. And in many cases, you'll find that the last author, like on a paper, is like the person who is the senior most member of like a laboratory or the owner of the laboratory where the work is done. So you'll find like the first author is the person who conceived the idea, and then you'll find like the second author is the person closely with that person. So the importance goes down like that, and then it increases again towards the end. So the first author is, in many cases, like if you have written a proposal, you've looked for grants, and you came up with the idea for doing the research, then you are the first author. But again, I would say that you'll find publications where you are only two of you, or even alone as an author. So if you are many of you, the credibility is based on becoming a first author is based on the input that you put in the work, or even the second author. Yeah.
Thank you. Question before we can conclude the session for Q&A. Dr. Beda, how do we apply for grants?
I think Dr. Samuel is in a better position to answer that one.
Okay, Dr. Samuel?
Yeah, so I think grants they have guidelines. So for example, there are some grants like if you are involved in HIV research, you'll find there are certain grants that are for HIV research. If you are a student, you'll find that there's grants that are available to students. So if you check online, you'll find there are some small research grants that are given to people who are starting as researchers. You will find there are big grants like the NIH grants that you cannot apply directly because the applicant must be from the US. So each grant comes with a specific requirement. So I think the best thing to do is to, if you see a grant online or even in the newspaper, read it, and as a student or even as a person who is starting to do research, form a core team, because most grants are not just given to anybody. They are given to people who have a credible background. So if you are just like a student who is starting a research, it may be, the chances of getting a grant may be lower depending on because grants are competitive. So you have to be attached to a research team or a group of people who have experience in doing research and grant writing, you can work with to write grants, and then you can apply for the grants. So even the small research grants, it is important that when you are applying for a grant that you have a mentor that you are working with to help you to write the grants. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It seems that we have no more questions. I'd like to thank our panelists for answering the questions on the chat box. We've had quite a few of them, and they've all been answered very well by our speakers. With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Hamza for conclusions of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Gagan, for that interactive and lively question and answer session. Hello, everyone. My name is Hamza Kawaja, a fourth-year medical student at the University of Nairobi. I would like to first begin by thanking you all for joining in for today's webinar. I see we have a global audience with us here today. This series would not have been possible without your interest and support. I'm sure we have all gotten some great insights, leads, and guidance into the publishing aspect of a research paper. On behalf of the team and myself, we would like to specially thank our speakers, Dr. Beda, Dr. Samuel, and Ashwinder for the excellent presentations. We are sincerely grateful to you for taking your time out and accepting our request to be here with us today. I would like to thank the organizers, RePub, ReMED, SCORE MSAKE, FAMSA SCOMER, SOHIC CHS, and Ubongo for their relentless efforts and for being instrumental in helping put together this informative and educative series of webinars. I would like to especially thank Daktari Online for their continuous support with providing us with the Zoom platform to host the webinars, as well as for all the efforts behind the scenes that allow for the smooth, professional, and efficient running of the series. Indeed, this would not be possible without your support. Furthermore, I would like to thank the team led by Atia Munim, Nicholas Kyoko, and my co-moderators, Yasser, Nikita, and Gagan, as well as everyone else working tirelessly behind the scenes in ensuring the flow of today's webinar. As we conclude today's webinar session, I would like us to take out some time and use today's session to delve deeper into the field of research. It is my hope that we all have benefited and learned about the process of publishing. There is a famous saying that goes, today's research is tomorrow's medicine. So don't be afraid in creating a better tomorrow and put the passion to purpose where the efforts put in today will bear a better future tomorrow. You can visit the RePub site at rhsj.repub.co.ke, where you can create an author account and submit your papers and findings for publication, as Ashwinder had already outlined. With this, I would like to mention that today's session marks the end of this successful and insightful 5-week-long webinar series. Stay tuned to our social media handles for more information on activities and webinars lined up just for you. Just a reminder, ensure you fill in the post-webinar survey form that is attached within the chat box in order for you to receive your certificate. A link regarding the same shall be sent to your email addresses once the session has ended. Once again, we thank you all for joining us today and see you all very soon. Stay safe and enjoy the long weekend ahead. Remember to wash your hands regularly and wear a face mask every time you step out. Goodbye and good evening.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.